What we have here is a glockenspiel. Makes a bunch of notes, like a piano. And I have my phone here telling me what note I'm playing. That was a G. More importantly, it tells me the frequency down the bottom left. So that G was 1574 Hertz, or thereabouts. If we play another G, but higher, 3145. It's basically double. Our ear hears those as the same note, but one's higher and one's lower. Similarly, we can go down. 788, about half. We hear those all as the same note, but some higher than others. Simply a doubling of the frequency. Double the frequency, double the frequency. So, it is desirable to have notes in between these notes, because having songs that just use one note is pretty boring. So how do you decide what other notes should exist? Because hypothetically there's an infinite amount of different frequencies, but having infinite notes is kind of pointless, and some of them, if they're very, very close, you can't differentiate between them. So, we need some nice notes. We need notes that sound nice when coupled together. So, if I start with, say, this one, C. If I play this note, that's very pretty sounding. The reason why it sounds so nice is because that is a frequency of about 1040. That is a frequency of 1570. So this is basically 50% higher frequency. A ratio of 3 to 2. So that's cool. We're gonna keep that note. We're starting to build up a scale, which is essentially a list of notes between one note and the octave above. So what's another good one? How about this one? That sounds very nice. This note is about a third higher in terms of frequency. So a 4 to 3 ratio. Areas like that. That's a good one. Okay, how about this note? That's also very pretty. This note has about a 25% higher frequency than this one. So, it's a 5 to 4 ratio. Our ears like all of those. Those are very pretty ones. You could very easily just have a scale like that, and that's what you make music out of. But we want more. One of the problems with creating a scale just by using ratios is that it isn't transitive. If I start here and use the same notes that we've already done, that wasn't it. That doesn't sound the same. That isn't the same scale. And if I try playing, so if I play these two, it's great. If I play these two, it's really not great. This isn't great at all. That's pretty awful. So, what do we do about this? Well, instead of defining the difference between notes simply by using ratios, we instead mathematically decide, we want, say, 12 notes. 12 notes between here and there. That's a good idea. And so we increase the frequency of each note by the 12th root of 2 each time. If you were to get out your calculator and times this frequency by 2 to the power of 1 over 12, you'd probably get that one. If you took this frequency, times it by 2 to the power of 1 over 12, you get that one, and so on, and so forth. That means that no matter where we start, the scale sounds the same. Just at a different pitch. One's higher, one's lower. Which allows you to play any song you want, starting at any note you want. So that's cool. We start at a note, go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and we go up 1, 2, 3. If I start here, well, that's wrong note. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, just up 3. Start this note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. That's really handy. Now we can play any tune that we have, any scale that we want, any pair of notes that we want, starting at any note. Because the ratio between the frequencies of this note and that note, of this note and that note, of this note and that note, of any two notes next to each other is exactly the same. This is why we have the scale that we do. Unfortunately, that means that these ratios that we figured out before aren't precise. This ratio, instead of being 3 to 2, is actually 2 to the power of 7 over 12 to 1. And this one is 2 to the power of 5 over 12 to 1. And this is 2 to the power of 4 over 12 to 1. Now, this one has the biggest difference out of those three to the ratio that it should be. That's actually a ratio of 1.26 to 1, as opposed to 1.25 to 1. But it's pretty close. So it still sounds fairly good. And it allows us to play songs starting at any key, or starting at any note that we want. Now, when I say starting at any note that we want, that's what people usually mean by the key. And while this isn't relevant to super basic music theory, this is more, realistic scales, we've realized, as humans, musicians, that sounds pretty. These are notes that sound pretty good. Out of the 12 that we've got, if we start at C and miss out all these other ones, basically we jump 2 notes, 2 notes, 1 note, 2 note, 2 note, 2 note, 1 note. It sounds pretty great. That's called a major scale. And we can do a major scale starting wherever we want. It's the same scale. So that's handy. And then, of course, there are other scales. If you start at any note and just skip out the top ones, you get a different type of scale. That's not one that we're particularly familiar with. Most people would know this one from do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. I don't sing, for good reason. People would know that scale, from Sound of Music, or a large majority of songs that use this scale. It's very, very familiar. A scale is basically just a bunch of notes in a row that go from one octave to the other octave that sound good. This one doesn't sound particularly pleasing, but that's called a chromatic scale. It's just the one where you include every single note that you've got. Further music theory in terms of actually playing notes and whatnot, that's a little bit more complicated, like deciding which notes are good together. But at least the origins of the scale that we have, and the reasons why we aim for particular ones like that one, that one, and that one, which splitting it up into 12 does really well, but splitting it up into 11 does pretty badly. that's a start, I guess. Someone else can probably do a better job. Bye.